The hidden disease of hip-hop. Sexy Red just exposed the dark side of fame. She said what every artist was too afraid to admit. And with just a few words, Sexy Red didn't just start a conversation. She started a war. What if everything you thought you knew about success was a lie? What if the same culture that glorifies power, money, and freedom is actually hiding a sickness underneath? A sickness that doesn't show up on your body but infects your soul. Behind every hit song and viral moment, there's something darker, an invisible contract, one that trades peace of mind for public worship, one that turns friends into rivals and love into leverage. Sexy Red's confession wasn't just gossip. It was a mirror held up to an industry that thrives on silence. She didn't just speak on rumors. She spoke on the price of being seen. Because the truth is, fame doesn't heal you. It exposes you. And in hip-hop, exposure can be fatal. Not to your body, but to your career, your circle, your sanity. So, what exactly did Sexy Red uncover? And why are so many powerful people suddenly afraid to talk? She said what every artist was too afraid to admit. And with just a few words, Sexy Red didn't just start a conversation. She started a war. What if everything you thought you knew about success was a lie? What if the same culture that glorifies power, money, and freedom is actually hiding a sickness underneath? A sickness that doesn't show up on your body but infects your soul. Behind every hit song and viral moment, there's something darker, an invisible contract, one that trades peace of mind for public worship, one that turns friends into rivals and love into leverage. Sexy Red's confession wasn't just gossip. It was a mirror held up to an industry that thrives on silence. She didn't just speak on rumors. She spoke on the price of being seen. Because the truth is, fame doesn't heal you. It exposes you. And in hip-hop, exposure can be fatal. Not to your body, but to your career, your circle, your sanity. So, what exactly did Sexy Red uncover? Sexy Red's come up was fast, almost too fast. A raw voice from the streets, unfiltered, bold, and loud enough to demand attention. She became a symbol of authenticity in a culture drowning in performance. But authenticity comes with a cost. Because the moment you refuse to play the game starts to play you. Behind every viral lyric and every bold interview, there was tension, whispers of industry pressure, quiet conflicts, and uncomfortable truths. Sexy Red wasn't just making music. She was pulling back the curtain on how the industry manufactures reality. She once said, "People love you when you fake it, but hate you when you real." That line hit harder than most realized. It was a warning. The industry didn't know it yet, but a storm was coming. And at the center of it stood a woman who refused to stay silent. What happens when a truth teller decides to expose the machine that made her famous? As her fame grew, so did the whispers. Producers started acting different. Collaborations suddenly got delayed. And behind closed doors, insiders began using one word: risk.
Why?
Because Sexy Red wasn't following the unspoken rules. In hip-hop, loyalty isn't about truth, it's about silence. Then came the interviews, where she began hinting that something was wrong in the industry. That artists weren't being protected, that certain things were being covered up. Her tone wasn't bitter, it was exhausted. Like someone who'd seen too much, too soon. The blogs ate it up. But beneath the memes and gossip, there was a sense of dread. Fans started asking, what is she really trying to say? The tension wasn't just in her words, it was in her silence between them. Every pause, every side-eye, every cryptic tweet was a message. She wasn't just venting, she was signaling. Was she calling out enemies or warning others to stay away? Then it happened. One clip, one moment, and the entire internet froze. In a live broadcast that felt half confession, half meltdown, Sexy Red dropped words that couldn't be unsaid. She spoke about the dark side, not naming names, but painting a picture of manipulation, fear, and hidden harm. She described how fame becomes a trap, a loop of exploitation disguised as opportunity. She called it a disease, spreading from one artist to another, infecting their morals, their sanity, their sense of self. Some said she was talking about industry addiction. Others whispered about deeper corruption, secret deals, psychological control, and blacklists. But no matter the interpretation, the message was clear. Hip-hop's glow hides a poison. Within hours, PR teams scrambled, phone lines lit up, and damage control began. But it was too late. The narrative had escaped. And once a truth leaks in hip-hop, it spreads like wildfire. Did she just expose the industry, or did the industry set her up to take the fall? Hip-hop is business first, culture second. Every artist who rises becomes both product and pawn. So when Sexyy Red spoke out, she didn't just rattle her peers. She disrupted the ecosystem. The people behind the scenes, label execs, managers, promoters, operate like a silent government. They reward compliance and erase rebellion.
Calls were made. Deals paused.
Media coverage shifted tone overnight. Suddenly, she went from authentic star to problematic figure. That's how the system defends itself, by isolating the loudest voice until everyone else falls back in line. Behind closed doors, industry veterans whispered about containment. Others said she'd broken an unspoken oath, the one that protects the powerful from scrutiny. It wasn't just about her words, it was about what she represented. A generation of artists waking up to the illusion of control. If power protects itself through silence, how far will it go to destroy the truth? The internet turned into a battlefield. Fans defended her honesty, calling her the only one brave enough to say it. Others accused her of seeking clout. Tweets read, "She's telling the truth. The industry been sick. They're gonna blackball her next, watch. Nah, she trippin'. Some things you don't say out loud." YouTube commentators dissected every frame. Podcasts debated whether this was courage or career suicide. But here's the irony. The more they tried to cancel her, the more her words resonated. People weren't just watching a scandal, they were watching a breakdown of trust between artists and the machine. It became cultural therapy, millions of fans realizing that fame isn't freedom. It's a trade, a shiny cage. Were fans awakening to the truth, or being fed another illusion? Every empire has its sickness. But in hip-hop, that sickness doesn't come from the body, it comes from ego. Behind the glittering chains and the flashing lights, there's an invisible infection spreading through the culture. Insecurity disguised as confidence, lust disguised as love, and loneliness disguised as loyalty. This is the disease Sexyy Red's story touches, not just physical but psychological. It's the mental unraveling that happens when fame becomes the only form of validation left. In the industry, image is oxygen. Every artist breathes it in to survive. But when your image is built on being untouchable, any sign of weakness feels like death. That's why so many choose silence, even when they're bleeding behind the scenes. Because in hip-hop, vulnerability is treated like a virus. You hide it or you get replaced. When Sexyy Red spoke up, she didn't just call out names. She broke an unspoken contract, the one that keeps power running through silence. The system works like this. The higher you climb, the more you owe. Every secret you keep buys you another year of fame. But the moment you speak, the mask cracks. And when the mask cracks, the machine turns on you. This is why betrayal cuts deeper in this world. Because it's not just about personal pain, it's about survival. Everyone is performing loyalty while plotting freedom.
And jealousy?
It's not the green-eyed monster they talk about in songs. It's colder, more strategic. The kind that whispers, "If I can't have your spotlight, I'll dim it from behind the scenes." The truth is, many artists live double lives, not because they want to, but because they have to. There's the person they are in private and the persona they sell to survive. But when those two collide, when the facade starts to crumble, that's when scandals are born. It's easy to label it as drama, but psychologically, it's a breakdown of identity. The constant pressure to be perfect creates paranoia, and paranoia creates destruction. The disease here isn't a virus. It's fame itself. It isolates. It magnifies your flaws. It rewards excess and punishes honesty. And for someone like Sexyy Red, who built her brand on being raw and unfiltered, exposing this darkness was both rebellion and therapy. But the industry doesn't forgive those who tell the truth. Once you expose the rot beneath the surface, you become a threat. You're no longer entertainment, you're evidence. Psychologists say that fame operates like an addiction, releasing dopamine every time the crowd cheers, every time the numbers go up. But like any addiction, the highs don't last. And when the crash comes, artists chase new thrills, new people, new secrets, new chaos. That's why the industry feels sick. Not because of what's happening in private rooms, but because of what's happening in their minds. A desperate chase for validation, an endless fear of being forgotten, and a system that profits from both. So when Sexyy Red ripped the curtain open, she didn't just expose individuals. She exposed the psychology of the culture itself. A place where loyalty is currency, betrayal is strategy, and silence is survival. What happens when silence is no longer enough to keep the machine alive? Then came the twist nobody saw coming. It wasn't just about one artist. It was about a pattern, a repeating cycle that's been part of hip-hop since its birth. Sexyy Red's exposure became a symbol of a larger rebellion, the fight between truth and control. And the more she spoke, the more her story started to sound like others before her. Artists who disappeared, went silent, or were rebranded. Maybe she didn't expose the disease. Maybe she became the cure, the uncomfortable reminder that truth still exists. But cures aren't welcomed in a system that profits from infection. Was this the end of her career, or the start of her legend? Every generation of hip-hop has its rebel, the one who dares to speak the truth when silence would be safer. But the question remains, does truth survive in an industry built on illusion? Sexyy Red's words left a scar, one that the culture can't ignore. Because deep down, fans know she wasn't just talking about herself. She was talking about all of it. The contracts, the politics, the masks we wear to stay relevant. In the end, the loudest truth in hip-hop isn't spoken, it's whispered. So after everything we've seen tonight, the confessions, the backlash, the silence from the top, one thing is clear. The industry isn't just broken, it's infected. Sexyy Red didn't just drop drama. She cracked open the secret system that's been running hip-hop for decades. But the real question is, was she brave enough to tell the truth? Or foolish enough to challenge the people who control the truth? Because this story isn't ending here. In fact, it's only getting darker. Drop your thoughts below. Do you think Sexyy Red exposed a hidden disease in hip-hop? Or was this just another viral distraction to cover something even bigger? Hit that like button if you're ready for the truth the industry doesn't want you to hear. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next video uncovers the names, the power plays, and the silent war happening behind your favorite artist's fame. The story isn't over. It's only just begun.